Now you and I think big. Let's talk about Class Bravo airspace. And you know that that is big airports, big airplanes, and big airspace. That's Boeing country. Good looking airplane. Now when you see Class B airspace on an aeronautical chart, what you'll see is solid blue lines like this. You must have an air traffic control clearance to enter Class Bravo airspace. And that's not just two-way communications. That's an actual clearance from ATC. What you want to do is listen for the controller's magic words, cleared into the Class Bravo airspace. You must hear those exact words before you can enter. Now, the reason you need a clearance is because ATC is sequencing and separating every airplane in that airspace. So they need to know exactly what you're going to do. Class B airspace are established around the very busiest airports. Airports like Los Angeles International, New York's Kennedy, and Chicago's O'Hare. The size and shape of each Class Bravo airspace area is different, so you have to look at the map of each individual one to see what it looks like. Normally, Class Bravo airspace will involve at least one primary airport and several secondary airports. Near the primary airport, Class Bravo airspace goes all the way down to the surface. But to find the exact floor and ceiling in each area, what you want to do is look for a line like this. Whatever is under the line tells you the floor of the Class B at that location. In this case, it says the surface. The number above the line tells you the ceiling in hundreds of feet. And here it's 10,000 feet MSL. Now, typically, as you get away from the airport, the floor of that Class Bravo airspace rises. Here it's 2,000 feet. Over here, it's 2,500 feet. And over here, it's 4,000 feet. Now let's you and I get airborne once again and take a look at what Class Bravo airspace might look like if you could see it from the cockpit window. First of all, near the primary airport, Class Bravo airspace goes all the way down to the ground. Now as you move away from the airport, the floor gets higher. Here they go from 2,000 to 2,500 to 4,000 to 6,000. Then when you're on final approach to the airport, you're looking at this from the end. So here's what it might look like when you're on final to Los Angeles International Airport, landing to the west. Now, you can fly over the top of and underneath Class Bravo airspace without a clearance. You just must have a clearance to fly anywhere inside the Class B airspace. So let's take a look at what you have to get inside. First of all, you must have that ATC clearance and hear those magic words, cleared to enter Class Bravo airspace. With an exception that we'll talk about later, you must be at least a private pilot to fly in Class B airspace. You also must have a communications radio because you've got to be able to talk to air traffic control. Now, since you're VFR, you are not required to have any specific navigation equipment. You will, of course, have to follow the clearance that the controller gives you, but you don't have to have any electronic navigation aids. You can just look out the window. You also must have a transponder with Mode C with altitude reporting both inside Class Bravo airspace and above it. But that's not all. If you take a look out here, 30 miles from the primary airport, what you'll see is a magenta circle. And when you take a close-up look at that circle, you'll see that it's labeled Mode C, 30 nautical miles. That's the outside edge of what's known as the Mode C veil. What that circle tells you is that you must have a transponder with altitude reporting when you're within 30 nautical miles of the primary airport, even if you're not inside or above the Class Bravo airspace itself. Now, the regulations do allow some limited exceptions to the transponder requirement in the Mode C veil at certain airports listed in the AIM and for aircraft that were certificated without an electrical system. Now, we said earlier, you must be at least a private pilot to fly inside Class Bravo airspace. Well, there's an exception to that, too. As a student pilot, you may fly solo in Class Bravo airspace provided you have logged ground and flight instruction in the specific Class Bravo airspace that you're going to fly in, and at the specific airport that you'll be taking off or landing from if you're going to be doing that. Now, once you've got that instruction, you need an endorsement. You must have an endorsement in your pilot logbook within the last 90 days. And what it shows is that you are competent to solo in that specific Class B airspace and to take off and land at that specific airport. But even if you meet all these requirements, you still cannot make solo takeoffs and landings as a student pilot at these listed Class Bravo airspace airports. Now, the first airport on this list, Andrews Air Force Base, is where Air Force One is based, and the rest of them are among the busiest airports in the world. And you'll find this list, by the way, in the Airman's Information Manual. Now, as a student pilot, you can fly in the associated Class Bravo airspace. You just cannot take off or land at those airports. Now, some Class Bravo airspace areas have a corridor that you can fly through without getting a clearance. And here's one here over the top of Lindbergh and San Diego. These corridors give you a way to pass through the airspace, in this case northbound or southbound, where you'd otherwise need a long detour to go around, or terrain might make a detour something less than practical. The San Diego and the Los Angeles Class Bravo airspace areas, for instance, have these kinds of corridors. They're just another example of another way the FAA really is here to help you. So when you think Class Bravo airspace, think big airplanes. Even think Boeing country if you want to. And remember, in addition to a dialogue and the transponder requirement, you now need a specific clearance to enter this airspace, Class Bravo airspace.